That's paper CB bracket 2 1717/13 to 14. The clerk has not received any proposed amendments. Do members endorse the minutes, please? No problem? Right. Item 2 on the agenda, information papers issued since the last meeting. 4 information papers have been issued. The details are in the agenda, including 2 papers about referral from our meetings with district councils. One has to do with the means of escape in the concert hall of Hong Kong City Hall and then the administration's response. If there are no questions, let's go into item 3, date of the next meeting and items for discussion. The next regular meeting has been fixed for the 11th of July, Friday at 8:30 in room 3. The items for discussion at the next meeting will be chosen from the list of outstanding items for discussion and also list of follow-up actions. And we have these 2 for the next meeting. 1, signature project of Wong Tai Sin District Council, and 2, review of the Hotel and Guest House Accommodation Ordinance. These are items 1 and 2 in the list of outstanding items for discussion. If there are no questions, we will agree with this arrangement. But the next meeting might have to be adjusted because of the LegCo Council meeting. However, nothing is fixed, and we would now still schedule it for the 11th of July. Any questions? If not, we go into item 4 of the agenda, promulgation of the first intangible cultural heritage inventory of Hong Kong. Attending for this item, we have from the administration Ms. Florence Hui Hiu Fai, Undersecretary for Home Affairs, Ms. Wong Yut Hua, PAS for Home Affairs, Ms. Cynthia Liu, Deputy Director from LCSD, and also Dr. Louis Ng, Assistant Director from LCSD, and also from the South China Research Center of the Hong Kong UST, Professor Liu Tik Sang. Can I now please ask Ms. Hui to introduce the paper? Yes, Chairman. Members, I'm very happy to be here together with the LCSD and also Professor Liu from South China Research Center of Hong Kong UST to introduce to you the public consultation on the promulgation of the first intangible cultural heritage inventory of Hong Kong, and also the confirmed first inventory after consulting the committee. The administration set up the Intangible Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee, or ICHAC, in order to take stock of our cultural heritage inventory, and we have also asked the South China Central or Research Center of the Hong Kong UST to help. And about the inventory, we reported to this panel in June last year, and then we conducted a 4-month consultation in order to gauge the public's views on the inventory. We have consulted the ICHAC on the views collected from the public, and after discussion, the committee is proposing to adopt the 480 items in Annex A to be the inventory. The paper has explained the principles for including the items in the inventory and also our follow-up work. This will be a piece of very important cultural heritage for Hong Kong, and it will be updated from time to time. And we are also going to consult the ICHAC on the urgency of items, and so that we can propose conservation and protection measures for the different items. We are also going to enhance the public's understanding of these items so as to allow them to be transmitted from generation to generation. Last but not least, I'd like to I'd like to thank the ICHAC for helping to do the general survey and also for advising which items to be included, so that the formulation and promulgation of the first intangible cultural heritage inventory could be rolled out smoothly. Community participation is crucial to this initiative. While we do our part, we will also invite the community and also relevant bodies to actively participate in our effort. I appeal to the public to work together with the administration in order to protect our intangible cultural heritage. Thank you. Any questions from members? First of all, I will ask questions, and then Yu Si-wing and Frankie Yik, and also Tony Chair. All right? I will allow 5 minutes each. First, I have 2 questions, please, for the administration. The paper says that this is the first inventory. Because of time and resource implications, you would only include items with sufficient information, and you will have to collect information on other items before they will be considered. I'd like to seek some understanding into the items not listed. What are you doing? What kind of follow-up work are you doing? And what about the timetable? By when, for example, are we going to have the second inventory? Also, these 480 items in the inventory, I'd like to ask about their transmission or passing. Of course, we understand the Chen Chao Jiao festival and also puppetry. But what about other kinds of intangible cultural heritage? How do you do the publicity and promote them? Some people, individuals or organizations would like to transmit these. What kind of measures will you adopt in order to help them do their work? Undersecretary, can you answer the questions? Yes, thank you, Chairman, for your remark and also questions. I also thank the Chairman for showing concern towards follow-up work on the inventory. In the main inventory, we have included certain items indeed because of time and information considerations, and some of the items are only included in Annex B for future follow-up action. Before the meeting, some items cannot be surveyed in detail because we cannot find any bearer in order to interview them. Some bearers have also refused the providing of information because of commercially sensitive considerations. And also, the definitions can be complex. That is why in Annex B, we have listed the items which have to be surveyed in greater detail, and then we would vet them and have a hearing on them before we would include them in the inventory. We have also set up a mechanism to allow the public to propose items in future if they think that they are local and they should be regarded as Hong Kong's cultural heritage, then they can make their views known so that the ICHAC can regularly look into these items to see whether the inventory should be updated. As for promotion and public education vis-à-vis our intangible cultural heritage, at present, the items already adopted on a national or UN level, those will be followed up in different ways. Even if some items are newly included in the inventory, we'll also make different options in order to survey and promote and also transmit them. We would provide different resources. For example, a few such items have policy support. Some funds provide them with the means to do promotion every year. And together with departments and community groups, we can continue to deepen education on intangible cultural heritage. I'd like to follow up on your last point. You mentioned funds. Is it a dedicated fund? What kind of funds are you talking about? And how can they make use of the funds? Do they have to apply? At this stage, in terms of Cantonese opera, it has its own development fund. And we also have the Lord Wilson Heritage Fund, which can support some other items. And also, through community activities every year, the Jockey Club Charitable Fund also supports a few items. We are not considering setting up any dedicated fund because there are different resources assisting these people, but we are open to ideas. Next one, UC Wing. Thank you, Chairman. I'd also like to talk about 14 to 17, which is publicity and promotion. As you know, we also have antiquities and monuments apart from intangible cultural heritage. Please continue. In fact, we should start the clock ticking for you. Last year, only 500,000 people visited our antiquities and monuments. In para 14, you talk about different activities, but the administration only says it will step up its efforts and that it has done more in the last few years. But you do not have any data or statistics. How much do you do before we say you have performed well? How can we measure the results of your efforts? Do you have any statistics for us? And I think we need to set a target so we can assess whether the administration has done well. For example, together with the Hong Kong Tourism Board, have you cooperated to do something? I like to see statistical results. Number 2, transmission. At a tourism fair the other day, I saw a follow-up item. I like to talk about 5.40. Sai Kung Hacker Women Hair Wrapper. I saw a very dedicated old lady, and she was demonstrating how the wraparound cloth was weaved. And she said that people would be able to weave their own in olden days, but now nobody knows how to do it.
I think nobody wants to learn now because it takes a long time to weave and they don't sell for much money. But this is an item that we want to follow up on to maintain this item. So there are people who are willing to teach the skill. There's knowledge involved. It's a person with quite a high level of education, and she's prepared to come up with a way that can do the weaving by machine. So has the government considered collect information and then try to preserve this sort of heritage? This is something very rare. It may be common on the mainland, but it's not so in Hong Kong. So this could be put on the inventory. As the chairman mentioned, is there a fund dedicated to preserving this, potential heritage of Hong Kong, handicrafts and so forth? Has the government considered this? 2 questions. Administration, thank you, Mr. Yu, for your 2 questions. As for data, we haven't listed data yet, but we can provide them to you later. But let me share with you briefly the Tai Hang Dragon Dance and the Taiping Ting Chu are events that I attend every year. Each time, for the Dragon Dance in Tai Hang, tens of thousands of people show up. And for the Taiping Ting Chu, many people turn up as well. And for Cantonese operas, they were staged for many times every year in Hong Kong as well. But we can provide you with the data on public participation later. As for transmission, as the 5.40 examples listed by Mr. C, hairdress and so forth, we have done a list of work indeed. And for some particular handicrafts, we will preserve them and put them on record. As for there will be people who are willing to learn them. Not necessarily every item could actually be transmitted, but we can popularize these sort of activities and try to stage workshops and so forth to promote these activities and let the public know more about them. So, Professor Liu, would you like to supplement? For the Sai Kung color band and so forth, colorful band is something very meaningful. And a lot of the colorful band techniques have been lost. And therefore, actually in a cultural museum, we have included stocks of such colorful bands. And we also see whether we can promote these activities, for example, to let students do it. So colorful band is also one item we're concerned with. Professor Liu, I think colorful band is a very good example. But back to the convention on the protection of the intangible heritage, I think it covers not just the transmission of techniques. Another important point is the relationship with the community. That is, once we have tried to preserve the heritage, we also let the people know that it's something important to the community. Because if there's no involvement of community members, then it'll just be a kind of record performance only. We need to really look at the heritage and its relationship with the community. Do people have a sense of belonging? And do they identify with it? That's another important element of intangible heritage. Okay, next one is Mr. Yik Chi-ming. In Annex B, you mentioned that in your survey, you met with some difficulties in finding people who are transmitting the heritage. Of course, it's a pity because that means that heritage could be lost. But I want to know, what methods do you use to find people who can transmit the heritage? Professor Liu? Perhaps I can take you through simply on a process of collecting information. Firstly, we begin with the library study. In newspapers and academic journals, we've identified items that we think had potential. And then that help us to come up with a list. And the list is shown to the committee. And the list, short list or checklist, forms the basis of our work. And then on the basis of this, we will go to various parts of Hong Kong to see which are the people related to the list. We make contact with 27 rural committees. We issue letters to all organizations known to us, for example, Clansmen Association, Kaifeng Associations, and so forth. We have issued more than 1,000 letters. And then based on our own research networks, we also find the people involved in transmission. For some items, we know there are people involved, but then not all of them are willing to be interviewed. Let me give you an example. For example, in walled villages, there's this ritual that when people got married, they had to sing for days. I also know that there are people, elderly people who are in the 80s and 90s who still can sing those wedding songs. And we asked the rural chiefs to get these people to sing the songs for us, but then they were not willing to do so. So we try to use various ways to find the people who are transmitting the heritage. Yes, I know that you have taken initiatives to find the people, but I don't think that you have widespread publicity for your work. If I had actually knowledge in some sort of heritage, I would be worried that nobody would be willing to follow up on the art. Last night on TV, you can see from program that, you can see on TV, news of actually ethnic tribes trying to kill another tribe. So if I were someone with a particular craftsmanship, for example, I would like to find someone to inherit the skills from me. So have you really undertaken widespread publicity to let people know that the government is on the search for these people, that if they want you to contact them, they can call a certain number and so forth? But I don't think you have done that sort of publicity. Thank you for your follow-up question. I think in our survey, This time, we collected information from individuals, organizations who took the initiative to contact us. And then our advisory committee considered further, and our experts further consider whether they're eligible. But maybe because, there's so much work that needs to be done, and as Professor Liu mentioned, all sorts of committees, organizations were contacted. But later on, when we begin our next stage of publicity, we will see how we can further enhance it. So that in the future, Mr. Yik, you will be able to know about our efforts. Well, now that you have got the results of your initial survey, and you know that there are people who were not willing to be interviewed, about the craftsmanship. So now I think it's time for you to let the public know and to invite the public to come forward to you. And also don't forget people who may have emigrated, and who might have knowledge of the craftsmanship or special practices in Hong Kong decades ago. So I think you can use your offices overseas to publicize your work as well. Yes, as for the fact that we can't find anyone to, give us further information. Actually, in NSB, you can see the information that we will follow up on. But indeed, there are 480 items that are already on our checklist or inventory. So may I ask my colleague to supplement? Well, thank you, Chairman. In the past, we concentrated our work on consultations and carrying out the survey. Now that we've got the first inventory, after the inventory has been promulgated, we will definitely make the public focus more on the inventory. And at this stage, we'll try hard to put information on, this inventory online. And later on, in our library websites, information about these 480 items will also be made available on their websites. I think these items will let the public know more about what we mean by intangible cultural heritage. We will have widespread publicity. I'd like to thank you for your view, and we do know that we need to enhance our publicity. Next one, Chair Wei-Chuen. Of course, when it comes to intangible cultural heritage, right now, of the 48 items on the list and items to be followed up, which number 180, it's quite a big number in total. I think we are concerned about transmission. So basically, of course, when it comes to transmission, we have to have the relevant records. And there are also craftsmanship measures that may be known to people. How about resources then? Because there may be, there will be actually more than 100 items, that could be further looked at. And there are Hong Kong volunteers who may help us find more information about these items. As for items involving performing arts, rituals, festival events, and so forth, some are better known to the public. For example, the dragon dance and so forth, or the color bands and so forth. So there are actually festivals that attract a lot of people's attention as well, or even people from abroad who are visiting Hong Kong. So would you distinguish between the various items? For some items, they may involve particular clans or families. For example, when it comes to Kung Fu, there may be some particular martial arts that are the expertise of some families. For example, Bruce Lee, he's known for his own brand of martial arts. And but there may be some other martial arts that have lost transmission. So Chairman, of so many items, how is the government going to, despite the inventory, distinguish between the various items and inject more resources to more because they're better known to people and so forth? So have you thought about the distribution of resources, in other words, and also of the 149 items to be followed up on? And the chairman would like to know, do you have a timetable? Because, as expressed by members, there may be some new items that can be uncovered. So there may be even more information to be provided by the public. So how will you follow up on the work? And do you have a timetable? Under Secretary? Thank you, Mr. Chair. And your questions? I think, indeed, we understand that we have a lot of work ahead of us. And how are we to prioritize our work? Indeed, we would. For example, for the 480-odd items, we'll differentiate among them various degrees of importance, and then we'll set priorities definitely to see which heritage items need to be preserved, studied on, and put on record first. And as for your concern about of the 480 items, how are we going to distinguish, various types of items among them? I think on this inventory, we would like to come up with another list of Hong Kong representative heritage. And then on the basis of that checklist, and then we'll find out which particular items need to be transmitted with priority. And you just then mentioned the idea of people providing information on a voluntary basis. Kung Fu people have their own connections or networks, but at the same time, for example, Tai Hang dance is a kind of heritage that is easily transmitted, and there are workshops that transmit the knowledge involved to the public. So for each particular item, we need to get in touch with the organizations concerned and try to enhance our public or publicity work better. So government, Chairman, do you think we need to increase the resources, and also how are you going to do your follow-up work on the other 100-odd items? As the Chairman asked in the beginning, we have the Wilson Fund that provides support for cultural heritage. We have a special fund for Cantonese opera. So we're not going to have a designated fund for cultural heritage at this stage. I think for resources, we don't think that is a big issue now.
But we are open to ideas. As to the timetable, we need to follow up on 140 odd items, and there has to be interaction with others. It will be difficult to formulate a timetable for all the items, but later on, after we have followed up on certain items, we can give you another report. Okay? 2 other members would like to ask questions. I'd like to know whether there are other members who would still like to ask questions. Those 2 members are Wu Chi-wai and Christopher Chung. I'll maintain the question and answer time to 5 minutes each. Wu Chi-wai, thank you, Chairman. A few remarks first. Number 1, I can see from the inventory that you have included traditional rituals or techniques. I believe they have been chosen on these grounds. I would think that they belong to another time, but my understanding of intangible cultural heritage should not rule out the present. Say, for example, our cafeteria and also on-street cooked food stalls that are very popular with Hong Kong people. If this should indeed be proposed by Hong Kong people, how would you deal with it? Also, in social evolution, as you know, we have a lot of marches, protests, and demonstrations, and how they have evolved over time. Actually, on Lonely Planet, such processions are publicized for tourists who may come to Hong Kong. So is there a mechanism for this to be transmitted? And number two, the paper does not really mention the history museum and also cultural and ethnic museums operated by the LCSD. Shouldn't more be done by these? And so we do not have just to rely on Lord Wilson Heritage Fund, because they already have the manpower contingent to work on in these areas. And also you can send public invitations to the tertiary institutions to help HAB do dedicated or thematic studies. So at least you do information collection for possible transmission. If you do this, you will be able to draft a timetable more easily. When you separate items from sub-items, you are already including many items already, and there are 800 odd others which have yet to be surveyed. And if people come in with more proposals over time, the list will be long. So why don't you try to make use of existing channels to help yourself come up with a timetable so you can complete your work ASAP. Members also mentioned that a lot of intangible cultural heritage may vanish because people who can tell the oral history of these will pass away, and our social development may also not be conducive to the preservation of such information. Thank you. Thank you for those two questions. Let me answer the second question first, and then how we can include items in the survey. That can be followed up by Professor Liu in a moment. You mentioned the different museums and how they can take part and support our effort. In fact, many of our colleagues are working very closely with the research team. At the same time, in the different museums, especially the History Museum and Hong Kong Cultural Museum, we are mounting thematic exhibitions to introduce to the public our intangible cultural heritage. And Professor Liu can answer the first question about our on-street cooked food stalls, etc. Professor Liu, when we included items in the inventory, we actually acted according to the Convention for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage adopted by the UNESCO. The convention actually does not tell us which items should be included in the inventory. It is up to that society to decide. The convention emphasizes a few things: that it should be transmitted from generation to generation, and that it is constantly recreated by communities and groups in response to the environment. We have included these two factors for consideration. If items comply with these two factors, they are included. Now, why did the convention come about? This is because in globalization, a lot of traditions, including traditional knowledge and techniques, have disappeared and may disappear. The convention, therefore, proposes to include or draw up an inventory of items that should be transmitted to future generations. We believe the criterion should mean that it has been transmitted for at least 2 to 3 generations. And one generation is said to include 20 years or 25 years. 3 generations would mean 75 years. That is how we drew the line. And we said that items which have been with us for 50 years, that is 2 generations, could be included. But society is dynamic. New things are going to appear, and these can also add cohesiveness in society. However, when we go for conservation, we cannot maintain an unwieldy and long list. So we say we need to come up with factors for consideration, and now we are drawing the line at 50 years. And of course, we understand that we may have omitted certain important things. But even if you think something is important, you can be subjective. To different organizations, they may view different things as important. So we have this open declaration mechanism. In other words, whoever thinks something is important can be declared openly for the consideration of the committee. This is how we chose items to be included in the inventory. Okay, Mr. Christopher Chung. If there are items which have yet to be discovered, are we going to look beyond our borders? Maybe we should go to Shenzhen and Dongguan. In fact, many of our citizens have come from those places, and they have similar activities, maybe the Hakka tradition and their songs. My mother used to know these songs, and in the walled villages, people used to sing these Hakka songs. Maybe we should go to the villages in Shenzhen and Dongguan so we can discover traditions that have more or less vanished in Hong Kong. Secondly, 3.33, the Monkey King birthday celebration in Taiwan and Sao Mau Ping. Among these festival celebrations, when there are festivals, they actually perform acrobatics. In Sao Mau Ping, people would run for burning charcoal, and even children can do it. In Taiwan, people write auspicious characters using tongue blood, and some people can have needles going through their tongues. Now, I have mentioned these, which may be regarded as superstitious by some people, but you have refused to consider them. Maybe you think it is a dangerous act, but this is being practiced in the community. You cannot say that they are declining, and so you refuse to attend to them. I think some of the seemingly superstitious traditions should be scientifically preserved so people can understand them. And also, on Kunyam birthday, you know that people would go there and queue up in order to beg Kunyam to open up the treasury so they become rich. Now, this may again be some kind of spiritual support for the community. These are the people's activities repeated every year. I think you should preserve these because they are unique to Hong Kong. Can you consider doing something? Undersecretary. Thank you, Mr. Chung. How we can cooperate with neighboring places. I can give you an example. Cantonese Opera, we do the declaration together with Guangzhou and Macau. If Hong Kong itself, Hong Kong is not the place for transmission, those items will not be included in the list. So indeed we have looked at our neighboring places. And since we have an open declaration mechanism, and in fact, some of the items are already in the follow-up list, we will revisit them and research into them at the appropriate time, whether that indeed they will finally become part of the inventory. Chairman, last time when we had a discussion, the administration refused what I proposed, traditionally dangerous acts where people hurt themselves with weapons, but in the end they do not get hurt. If such a unique tradition is not included in the inventory, even people outside Hong Kong will find this strange. Thank you. Actually, in 4.11 spiritual boxer, this is already included. We need to research in detail into these, and we have to discuss with relevant people. We will ask the advisory committee to look into it and confirm whether it should become part of the inventory. Mr. Leung Chi-Chung. Thank you, Chairman. After reading the inventory, I think it is quite comprehensive. There are many items and you do cover many different areas and categories. Mr. Chung mentioned spiritual boxer. Of course, this is something that still exists, and also there are people doing spiritual communication by shaking a bowl of rice. Some people think that it is superstitious, but there are people in our society who believe in these. Should the administration do some research? Whether it will go into the inventory is another matter, but these are our traditions. I hope you can do something about this. I'm more concerned about traditional martial arts. In your inventory, what we see, what we know, how should I put it? Many of these are included in the inventory already.
And I can see that in the new territories, in the period, in the early days of the Chinese Republic, in villages then, actually, they tended to hire boxers to teach boxing as a kind of exercise for the people there. So I think this kind of history, I hope, can be put on the list and be treated as a kind, put it into our cultural database so that more people would know about the past history of the new territories. I haven't seen these boxers myself, even though I'm not from walled villages, but I heard that from people older than me, when they were small, they did practice martial arts. So it's a very happy memory for them. But these things no longer happen now. But I think the history and culture involved should be put on record. Administration. Thank you, Mr. Leung. Indeed. There are lots of histories in Hong Kong that should be put on historical records, and so that people can know more about them. We'll definitely take on board your views. Thoroughly. I'd like to find some more, on the inventory, as mentioned by the Undersecretary. There was a public mechanism for the public to there's this channel for the public to add items to the inventory. My initial impression is that, for example, milk tea, silky milk tea and egg tarts, why are they now not in the inventory? These, they are such characteristics in Hong Kong, and they have such strong local flavor. Thank you, Ms. Lee. silky milk tea, the making techniques of milk tea is included in Annex A 5.63, the technique of making the tea. As for egg tarts, is in 5.33. The making technique for egg tarts is item 5.33. Okay. Next one, Chen Chi-chun. Chairman, I remember when we discussed this item, I talked about beating devils. And in 3.16, you put it under another category. I find that indeed beating devils can happen not just on specific days as mentioned in the paper. It can happen any day. I think beating devils is a habit that is a practice attractive to tourists. They do come here to take pictures of the women beating the devils on the street. So I'd like to ask the administration, how do you consider, why would you only include beating devils as an activity for a certain, put it under a wider category? Let me reiterate that beating devils does not just happen on one day during the year. And also, in our previous discussion on ICH, people mentioned about the candlelight vigil on June 4th and July 1st, March. So what did the administration think? Why is it that these two activities are not included? If you judge them by the criterion of practices and occasions, I think candlelight vigil on June 4th is a kind of heritage that deserves to be transmitted. I think as for the beating of devils, as for our considerations, I think for the considerations concerned, let me ask Professor Liu to elaborate. Yes. Let me explain to you how did we come to our decision on the inventory. We, of course, made reference to the UN Convention as the basic principle. And in the convention, there's no mention of who should or what should be put on the inventory. It just gives us the direction. Why was the convention set up? The purpose of it is because of globalization. A lot of the traditions in various places have been destroyed. And these traditions were at risk of disappearing. And therefore, the convention emphasized 2 points. One is that we need to preserve skills and knowledge that have been transmitted from generation to generation, and that the practice concerned must have a close tie with the community. That is, the practices concerned help put a community together. So these are the factors we consider. Beating petty persons, we did carry out a study on it. We did put on record what we observed in Wan Chai when this practice happened. And across Hong Kong, we also carry out study on offering sacrifices to white. And we find that there's a close link. There's a close link between the activity to the Insects Awakening Day and the tiger during Insects Awakening Day. So we know that because of the tie of beating petty person to such offerings, we decided to put it under a wider or broader category that has close tie with a community. And so you need to have a practice that has a close connection with the community before it can be justified as an ICH. We can't have a very long inventory, so we have to draw a line somewhere. So therefore, a practice that's transmitted from generation to generation is another important consideration. So how do you draw the line? I think to me, June 4th, the vigil for June 4th is something that has been transmitted from generation to generation. It's been passed on to at least 3 generations. Well, to us, in Cantonese, we describe generations to generation as more than as at least 3 generations. If you consider each generation as 15 years, then that means you have to at least have a practice that has been existent for 50 years before it should be considered by us. Okay, second round. I think we only have 2 minutes for each. There are 4 members who want to speak, including myself, Wu Chi-wai, Yu-si, Wing, and the others. Okay, so 2 minutes for each member. I'll start first. Under Secretary, at weekends, I carry out a survey myself on Lantau, and I went to various points. When I was at Tai O, I found that it was just a month ago. I found that there was a tradition in Tai O where there are a lot of steel houses, right there, and they have a practice on June 6th every year. That is near the coastal area. They will actually set up some makeshift stage near the coast, on which performances will be staged. And I heard that this is the last year when they had this makeshift stage built above water. So I found a video crew, and I'm going to actually fund the shooting of this kind of performances above water myself. If I want the government to try to give help, what can I do? I don't know. Say for similar scenarios. So as Professor Liu said, some people may feel that something is important, but if you have to have discussion first on whether it's important, then the activity may be gone forever. After June 6th, for example, there would no longer be any performances staged above water. So as for the performances in Tai O on makeshift stage, I think we can supplement later. As for the rescuing of particular heritage items, I think we can have immediate communications to see how we can collect various information to salvage any heritage that is at risk. Well, I did my work immediately myself. Of course, we do appreciate any efforts that are taken, by individuals, but we will try to do what we can to save heritage. Sometimes, people who know, a particular kind of heritage among themselves would try to save it. But I think the initial first step is very, very important. Next one, Yu Si-wing. Chairman, just then we talk about various items. Item 90, that is the Ghost Festival. Always Ghost Festival events are organized by old people only. But I think years later, when the old people pass away, the young people may not hold events related to Ghost Festival anymore. And there are 90 items related to it on the inventory. So I think we need to have more support from the administration. I've talked to various trade associations, and they've expressed an interest in developing the activities related to Ghost Festival. But what would the government do? Fire, dragon dance, of course, is something participated by a lot of tourists, but not that much effort for a Ghost Festival. So can I ask the Chinese Ghost Festival, can I ask the government to concentrate resources on promoting events related to the Chinese Ghost Festival? When I was a child, these events were very, very popular, but now it seems that these events are just scattered across the territory. If the government is willing, I will definitely liaise with you further. Look at the Halloween festival each year, how popular it is. Can we create a Chinese version of the Halloween? I think Mr. Yu's views certainly are welcome. And later on, I can discuss with you later on in person on how we can provide more information or see how we can collaborate perhaps together. And Chairman, as Mr. Choi Wei-chin said, now we've got more than 400 items on the inventory. Can you in the future set up a grading system for the items that is indicating which items should be promoted and which should only be put on record alone? Yes, 2 points. Yes, we share the same direction. Definitely, of the 480 items, we would have a checklist of particular Hong Kong representations that will be further studied and preserved. How are we going to decide on the Hong Kong representations list? We would we would make a judgment on the basis of their importance, degree of importance. So there will be sub-items as well. So there could be some that are to be earmarked for preservation. And so we can have sort of kind of a condensed list later on. As for Annex B, you talk about bearers. You found the bearers, but then there are some reasons that they were not willing to disclose the information or knowledge concerned. So how would the government resolve this? You don't want to see heritage lost. May I ask Professor Liu to comment from the perspective of the advisory committee? Yes, I think to us, of course, can be frustrating to us that, we found a bearer, but then the person is unwilling to disclose knowledge or information. Let me give you an example. I found an old woman who's about 100 years old who is able to sing songs from her childhood. We found her in an old people's home, but then she's unwilling to be interviewed by us. There's nothing we can do. And also, under Hong Kong laws, some activities are restricted. For example, for drug manufacturing and so forth. So even the bearers are willing to talk about historical facts, but when it comes to actual knowledge, they are not willing to talk further because they are afraid of, creating a negative impact on their business. So if commercial interests are involved, there is just a limit to what we can do. And for example, family recipes, right? They have been passed from generation to generation. They don't want to reveal, family secrets to outsiders. So the advantage of having the inventory is, in the long run, people can understand that we're not talking about something private. I hope that with the inventory, the public will be willing to open up their own traditions.
So, apart from resources, education and publicity are equally important, so society understands this is our own cultural heritage. Chairman, can I just say one thing? Maintaining the communication is important because on a certain day, if he or she is willing to give the information, then he or she can get in contact with you. Mr. Wu Chi-wai, a quick one from me. I was asking the Undersecretary for a timetable, and I'm most concerned about the History Museum and also our ethnic museums, whether they can play a bigger part. Just now you told me that they would mount exhibition after receiving the items. Well, of course you are going to do that, but I am asking that since the museums have their own manpower already and they also have basic resources, can they not do a bigger part? And also, can you not do your work in a more effective way? For example, you can invite the history faculty of the universities to do research, or else I don't know how long it will take for you to complete the few hundred items. Mr. Wu, you can rest assured we will work more closely with the organizations. Well, can you not give me the specifics? Of course you are going to cooperate closely with them, but by what time are you going to come up with what results? Because we say a lot of these items are urgent. Maybe they are fast disappearing. If you don't work fast, you will have no way to preserve them. I will defer to Ms. Cynthia Liu. Mainly, we are working with a dedicated group or task force under the Cultural Museum. The task force was not so big, but we are boosting its manpower resources. And the HAB has given us extra funding so that the office with 3 persons will be boosted to 10 persons. In the short term, we have to continue with our work, so we are going to ask for a bigger establishment. The HAB has also given us extra funding, so research-wise, we can, as Mr. Wu proposed, consider working together with the tertiary institutes, especially with regard to items in Annex B. We have to do detailed research on them. What about an assessment of time? Within this year, and actually by the end of this year, all the 480 items and their details will be uploaded. And also within the year, we will take up a detailed discussion to come up with criteria so that the endangered items within these 480 will be selected and listed. And also within the year, we are going to start further research on items in Annex B. That's it for the second round, and I believe it is really the time to finish discussion of this item. I think we are on the dot. Next item. Item 5 on the agenda, provision of stage facilities at performance venues under the LCSD. We still have Ms. Florence Hui with us. We also have Ms. Cynthia Liu again, DD of LCSD. And we also have Ms. Winsome Chow, Assistant Director from LCSD, and also Ms. Wong Yut Hua, PAS for Home Affairs. Ms. Hui, can you take us through the paper, please? Yes, Chairman, members. I'm very happy to be here together with LCSD colleagues to introduce to you the enhancement of stage facilities at performance venues under the LCSD. LCSD manages 6 performance venues, including 2 indoor stadia. They provide different stage facilities in order to facilitate the users, so they do not have to make use of their own stage equipment. Very often, professional bodies, international performing troops, and even local troops have assessed positively such stage facilities. However, in order to comply with new requirements of professional performance, we have come up with an enhancement program in order to upgrade the stage facilities at all 16 performance venues. We have also prioritized the project. In the last 5 years, the LCSD has spent $54.7 million in order to enhance lighting and also stage facilities. Innovative industry is advancing by leaps and bounds, and we are communicating closely with stakeholders to see their needs, and we are also communicating with overseas arts administrators in order to take hold of the latest information in the market. We'll continue to provide quality service so that the LCSD venues continue to be competitive, and so that members of the public have a better viewing experience. And now we are happy to take questions. How many members would like to ask questions? Wu Chi-wai and I myself. Any others? Christopher Chung. If not, 5 minutes first. Wu Chi-wai. Thank you, Chairman. I find this a little strange. Well, as venue operators, of course, you have to deal with these. You provide this paper, but are you going to apply for funding from us, or are these minor works that you can handle yourselves? Sorry, Chairman. I think there are so many things we can discuss. I think this one is not any special item. I think you're just upgrading your normal basic facilities. I don't know why, Chairman, you agreed to discuss this item. I'd like to know what special circumstances there are so that we should have a discussion of this item. Let me add. In fact, I asked the administration to allow us to discuss this because the constituents I represent have spoken on this, and therefore they have asked for a discussion. Well, it's okay if you want to have a discussion, but the entire list is about old facilities that they have to be replaced or enhanced. I mean, what is the purpose of this discussion? What are the special features of this paper? Okay, I'll ask the administration to answer you. Thank you, Mr. Wu. We have provided this paper in response to certain requests from the sector, and also the chairman has asked us to brief members on what we are going to do to improve the facilities. Well, it's all right, but I believe our precious meeting time should not be spent on this one, because under the HAB there are many other more worthy items for discussion. Well, but it doesn't matter since you wanted to have this item at the meeting, but I don't think there is anything really to discuss, because this is really some continuous work you should do at your bureau. However, if there is a particular problem at a certain venue and you ask for our advice how to improve it, or you come here for funding requests, then I know why we're discussing it. But this is just about your venue facilities, and they of course have to be replaced and enhanced when their service life is over. Undersecretary, anything to add? Nothing. Now, I myself have several questions. In fact, I have many questions. Number one, the sector said this to me. They understand that very often professional or non-professional activities are placed in the same venue, and they have different requirements of the venues. So they first like to ask, in the long term, can you consider separating local non-professional activities on the one hand and professional performances on the other, so you can take care of the needs of different users? Secondly, the facilities are not managed in an efficient manner. The stage facilities are managed by the LCSD directly, but lighting is managed by EMSD. And they are also operated by EMSD. As to acoustics and images, they are contracted out to PCCW. In the same performance, there are different teams of people working on stage at the same time. And in actual operation, very often, professional performing groups also have their own project team. And they, in fact, sometimes do not want to use the LCSD manpower. And LCSD manpower may just be playing a supporting role. So how can you improve the efficiency? And there have been direct complaints about the Kwai Ching Theatre, and you talk about highly effective projecting facility. Actually, professional bodies do not only talk about Kwai Ching, but also City Hall, because if you have good projecting facilities, you can save the expenses on props and the backdrop. And also surtitle or subtitle systems, they are often required. And also multicam, TV wall, 3D mapping. Now, of course, we are not asking them to be in every venue, but can you not do some survey? Which venues will be used mostly by what bodies, and what are their requirements? Say the Coliseum, the display board, very often people say it is not the right thing. Last time, the sector gave you some views when you did some renovation, but it was not adopted by you. Can you respond? Thank you, Chairman, for your questions and comments. Our venues are all multifunctional venues. And therefore, professional or non-professional groups can make use of all the venues. As for your concern on efficiency management involving different teams of people, in fact, before performances take place, we would arrange working meetings for the different teams to communicate. You are concerned about the highly effective projecting system at Kwai Ching. We have this follow-up system, and it will be installed. So the projecting requirements of performing groups will be met. Their needs will be met. What about my other questions? Can I defer to the DD? Are you going to conduct a survey, for example, about actual needs? In fact, we have regular discussions with the sector. We can see how we can do a finer job. But the DD, Ms. Liu can supplement. I can be more specific. Let us talk about the Coliseum. Every year, we have a meeting, a thorough meeting with the relevant associations, and sometimes they will also relate to us their views, like flying bars. When the flying bars were changed because of the Southeast Asian Games, the loading capacity was lowered. And we consulted them recently, and we had many meetings with them. We said that the system would be changed so that we can have another 3 tons of hoisting capacity for the groups to use. So we have heard their views, and we are doing continuous improvement. As at Kwai Ching, the projecting system, it is so expensive. We spent over $1 million on it, but if this is going to be repeated for all other venues, there will be financial pressure on us. And we would only provide such at venues where there is a high usage rate of such equipment. You mentioned the City Hall, and we are going to watch the situation closely in order to enhance the facilities.
Christopher Chung, next. Yes, I agree with what Wu Chiwei said about showbiz industry. I think the administration may want to set up a checklist together with the users, or you can form some users groups, to have a review with them and get feedback from them on what they want. And so you know better how you can improve the facilities. I often go to see shows at your venues, and I found that LCSD venues are actually much better than venues managed by Home Affairs Department. So there's room for review for Home Affairs Department to run venues. We've spent so much money on the venue, and yet the systems at those venues is not necessarily good. I find that we are actually cheated by the EMED. So I think government departments should review, and their facilities. And I think LCSD should have its own professional team rather than contracting out your work to other people. So you should hire technicians yourselves and other professionals to improve the lighting, sound systems, and so forth. If you provide such services for users, then that can even help enhance our facilities further. So we can make improvements upon getting feedback. To get my interest, I'm a committee member of a theater group, and I found that the subtitle systems at some venues are installed such that the subtitles are seen actually above the stage. So it's difficult for people to actually concentrate at the subtitles and the play at the same time. But Sunbeam Theater is quite well designed. People don't have to look up to see the subtitles. So I think that's something that could be improved. If you are, watching, for example, performances that require subtitles, the audience to see subtitles, I think you need to look into improving the positioning of where the subtitles are displayed. And for example, Hong Kong Cultural Center or other venues where I think the sound system is not as good as the one at City Hall or some civic centers. Okay, stage management, subtitling system, and so forth, all these concerns. May I ask Ms. Liu to respond? As for stage management, we have tried to use other service providers, to actually be responsible for the stage management. Now we are having the services shared by PCCW and the Electrical Mechanical Services Department. So we try to invite bids or tenders for some performance venues. But we found that in the market, if we were to find service providers for venues, I found that it's very difficult to find these people. So I think the only alternative for us is to have the services shared by the two parties. All along, there could be some problems with communication between us, our stage managers and the other service providers. I think there haven't been any major problems, and we are on the whole satisfied with the services we get so far. But we'll continue to see if there's any room for improvement. Next one is Liu Siwing. Improving facilities, of course, is something I agree with. But I'd like to ask the administration, have you also got unified standards for your venues and services? And also, if a venue has asked for improvement in their overall facilities, for example, City Hall, it's a place where a lot of international groups perform, then would you, on the basis of the location, the use of a site, approve such requests for upgrading? And as for your budget, you haven't told us the total budget. You only said that in the past 3 years, you've dedicated $54.7 million. But have you got an idea on your annual budget for maintenance and upgrading of venues? If so, why is it that you haven't listed out your annual budget? Where does the problem lie? Thank you, Mr. Yu, for your questions. As for enhancement or upgrading projects, we do actually for some venues, performing venues, we do have plans for how to upgrade them. For example, depending on the needs for each venue, we have our own plan for upgrading, and for different venues in different places, some venues which are used for musical performances will actually, of course, try to enhance the sound system as a priority. But as for other questions, let's ask Ms. Liu to supplement. Just then you asked whether because certain venues are used for certain purposes, yes, of course, that's possible. For example, at the Grand Theatre at the Hong Kong Cultural Center, recently we added a digital cinema system there because the Hong Kong Film Festival, for example, is held there every year for this playing of digital cinemas. Because of that, we have enhanced the digital cinema facilities there. As for our budgets, we do have a recurrent budget of, for the purpose of enhancement and maintenance of venues of about $17 million each year. But is it sometimes we can increase the budget because of some special expenses? For example, lately we improved the sound system at the City Hall, and we carried out a consultancy study in relation to that. We have to, enhance the sound system there and install special equipment. So in the past 2 years, we've spent more than $4 million for that purpose. And that will be on top of our regular annual budget of $17 million. So our bureau has to fight for extra revenue to allow us to carry out large-scale maintenance projects or to have ad hoc upgrading plans. Yes, Chairman, I do agree that we need to constantly enhance our regional facilities. But for some venues which are commonly visited by Hong Kong people, I also hope that we can enhance them. We can have venues for international world-class events like West Kowloon Cultural District, but like Hong Kong City Hall or other regional facilities like Hong Kong Coliseum, I do hope that we can upgrade them to a certain level, and the government can consider approving a certain funding in one go to enhance these regional venues or venues used a lot by the public. So we don't just enhance these venues slightly. So have you considered doing that? Thank you. For various venues now, actually various international groups do perform in different venues now. And the public or the audience were quite satisfied with the standard of performance there. So the government would not, because of the West Kowloon project, overlook the support for existing venues. Yes, we'll continue to upgrade existing venues, and all through the years there have been international groups that have used the venues, and the groups have been pretty satisfied with the venues. Our cultural center, for example, our city hall, and so forth, have been used by international groups. So please rest assured that, of course, West Kowloon can bring in or create more international venues, but a lot of the existing venues are also up to or are usable by international groups. Have any overseas groups made any complaints? Well, recently, the Kwai Ching Theatre, there was concern about the projector there, but we actually took the step of upgrading the projector there at the Kwai Ching Theatre. Okay, Chin Chi Chun, well, the paper talks about upgrading plans for stage facilities. I'd like to ask whether these plans are already cover events that charge rentals. For example, the government said that the government spent $1 million on the projector at Kwai Ching Theatre. Should the government charge extra for installing this equipment? What are your criteria for claiming or charging the users back? Ms. Liu? Well, we have a rental system under which lots of stage facilities would not command extra charges. So a lot of users from overseas feel that this arrangement is very good because overseas, the equipment may actually be charged individually. But we will actually, depending on the need, may charge extra wireless mics, for example, or special lighting, or the special pianos used in concerts. For individual items, we will list out to the users what would be charged separately or what need not be charged. Well, how about the projector? Well, we haven't installed a projector at the Kwai Ching Theatre yet, but I think our initial idea is we will not charge users extra for the additional system. I think now it's time for the second round of questioning. After the questioning, I have actually talked to some professional groups, particularly those involved in stage performances, and they have given me a lot of views. One is that a lot of people will, when they perform, go onto the stage, and in comparison with Singapore, the groups told me that we haven't had any menus technical manuals for people involved in stage management or doing, the stage performances. For example, we don't have a licensing system, and also the standards for putting hangings on the stage and so forth, or standards for people working at height. Often people only can refer to guidelines provided by stage managers, and also the use of fireproof materials on stage and so forth. All these standards, people have told us that we don't have standardized operational guidelines. For the sake of professionalism, such guidelines should be put in place. So do you have a plan to create or compile such guidelines? Would you consult the industry when you devise such guidelines? I think you can have 4 minutes to answer. Thank you, Chairman. I believe that there are some individual guidelines, but as for comprehensive guidelines or a menu that covers like the standards for putting hangings on the stage and so forth, I think if there's a need, we can discuss with the users more and see what we can do. Any other questions? No one has asked to speak. And I've got another question. Just then, I think the administration has not yet answered my question on, the view from the industry that, there's so many new techniques. For example, digital technology. There's the digital cinema system mentioned. But multicam, how about multicam, video wall, 3D mapping, all these technologies. If you want to use this technology, the users have to bring these technologies or bring in these technologies to the stage themselves. But when they're using these technologies, then the staff stationed at the venue would not be able to use the new skills. So whether we have a professional staff around, and I think these advanced technologies over time will become standardized technologies. So whether you charge the users back or not, would you consider, at key venues, try to install such technologies there?
Thank you for your follow-up question. Actually, we can mostly comply with the requirements of the users. Actually, also by the provision of our latest facilities. You mentioned the next generation of stage facilities. What are we going to do? We are going to maintain liaison with users, and we are also watching closely the latest trend of development. However, when we go for enhancement, we have to look at cost effectiveness. It's just like changing your smartphone once a new model is in the market, and we have to be gradual and orderly in enhancing our facilities. And the Secretary, you said that our facilities are very competitive. That is in your opening remarks. I'd like to ask you, basically, our venues do not have to compete with others. They are provided by the LCSD. No two international bodies, there is this angle of competitiveness because they can choose Hong Kong or other places to stage their performances. They will also consider the venue facilities when they make their choice. We also want to bring in such performances for the benefit of the public. Okay, any other questions from members? If not, I think we can draw this item to a close. Next item, AOB. Anything under AOB? If not, our meeting will end here. The next meeting will be at 8:30 on the 11th of July in room 3. Thank you.